Good afternoon. Welcome to the show. I'm Mary Grace. It is a rainy, snowy, icy day here in Central Virginia on the 6th of January, 2024. Hard to believe we are 3 years out from that crazy day that happened up in DC that has had the left in a tailspin ever since. Will we see vindication from that? I believe we will, but we'll get into those topics in just a minute here. I do have a guest with me. I'm just going to minimize the screen for just a second and talk to you as you're coming in. I want to remind people, if you're sitting there wondering where the heck is Mary Grace, you're probably not watching this because you're not on my mailing list. And if you get on my mailing list at marygracemedia.com, if you go there and sign up for the mailing list, you're going to get notified before I put shows like this up. And that is the best way to find me. marygracemedia.com, join the mailing list, get an email before I go live. The other thing I want to remind you of is you probably have noticed, if you've been paying attention, that the recession is not over, and the things that your money used to buy, they're not buying them anymore. Your money is not going as far as it used to. And so you might be thinking, what's going to happen to my money? What's going to happen to my IRA? What's going to happen to my savings if I keep it in the bank or in the markets in this economy? Well, the people who can help you answer that question are over at KirkElliottPhD.com. My friend Kirk Elliott and his team are licensed investment advisors. They will have a conversation with you. They'll ask you some questions, see where you are, what your concerns are, what your fears are, and what your hopes are for the future. And then they'll help you make a decision about what's right for you. Should you move some of your money, reallocate it into physical gold and silver? If you have those questions, go ahead and contact them. Go to KirkElliottPhD.com. The number is 720-605-3900, 720-605-3900. They will get back to you if you leave a message. Make sure you tell them that Mary Grace sent you. That's really important. Mary Grace sent you. Also, coming into the new year, our friends over at MyPillow have an incredible sale going on. There's tons of buy one, get one offers, deep discounts if you use my promo code Mary Grace. MyPillow.com, promo code Mary Grace. Don't forget your furry friends. They love the pet beds. Mine do. Go to MyPillow.com, promo code Mary Grace, and you will get all the things at the best discount. So without further ado, I want to get back to our regularly scheduled program with our friend Dave. And there he is. It's so good to see you, Dave. We are here for Conspiracy of Truth. We're going to talk about all the things that used to be conspiracies that are now true. And so, Dave, welcome to the show. Here you are. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me back on the show. It is good to be back talking more conspiracies and other ideas that pop up on the radar.
Yeah, the conspiracy theorists are batting 1,000 right now. It's amazing. I mean, from
Anons
everything
are
from the
undefeated.
yes, the Anons are undefeated. The Epstein list, I mean, you name it, all the people that called us crazy. We're now getting some pretty big revelations about the election fraud that took place in 2020. We're getting lawsuits filed against Capitol Police and other law enforcement entities over January 6th from people who were in the crowd, from defendants, which is pretty amazing. And also, I just saw yesterday that there were some of the charges that were leveled against one of the defendants were dropped by an Obama-appointed judge. Did you see that?
I did
I
not
came
see that.
across it on, yeah, I came across it on my timeline. I don't have the details up before me, but it means that the judges are questioning now, even in D.C., some of the judgments that have been passed against these defendants for, in many cases, not even having set foot near the Capitol and the weaponization of our DOJ. But I don't want to go too deep into that. I just wanted to highlight some wins for the Anons at this point. And I want to go a little bit deeper into some of the topics that we're seeing. But Dave, what's on your mind right now? What's top of mind? You've been posting a lot of articles, a lot of interesting things, like crazy. So where are you headed right now in your thinking?
Get ready for the blackout. Get ready for
Whew,
the blackout because
okay.
it's coming. That's top of my mind. I spend an enormous amount of time when I'm not writing books about emergency preparedness and off-grid communication. I've been spending a lot of time getting comfy with off-grid communication. I've been building some homemade antennas. Yeah, there's the book. I've been building some
Yep.
homemade antennas. I had a dream about, I think it's 5 nights ago, where I was building makeshift antennas from commonly available supplies. I actually built an antenna for it's a dual band antenna for two amateur radio bands, the 70 centimeter band and the 2 meter band. And I built it out of some spare wiring that's used for doorbells. It's really thin,
Mm-hmm.
flexible wiring. And I took
I,
some
I was
scrap
going to say
wiring.
aluminum foil.
Almost. I took one of these things,
Yeah.
which, if you're in the military, you might know this as a Cobra head, but it's a BNC connector. It's got a BNC type connector on this end, and it's got a couple of banana plug jacks on this end. Plus, it's got threaded ports, threaded, uh, not ports. We call them.
I, I'm
The
lost here.
word is
So you
escaping me.
keep.
But terminals, sorry, threaded terminals.
Okay.
And so what you do is you connect wires to a wire to the black terminal, and you connect another wire to the red terminal, and you measure the length of them for 2 meters. The length is 19 inches for 70 centimeters. The length is about 6.5 inches. And I'm making some really cool homemade homebrew antennas out of this thing that costs a couple bucks and some cheap wiring. And the reason I'm going into all this stuff, and a lot of you are sitting there going, "What in the world are you talking about? How does this
Yeah, I'm
relevant
kind
to
of in that
anything
boat.
that's going on in the world?" Well, God has been hitting me for the last 3 years that there is going to be a blackout of communications, that we're going to lose cell phone service and lose internet. It's coming. I don't know what the inciting incident is going to be, but I'm absolutely positive that we are going to lose cell phone internet service. And so I'm trying to be obedient, and I'm trying to learn as much as I can about various ways to communicate that do not require the power grid, that do not require the internet, and do not require cell service. So all the other things that are going on are interesting. Uh, everything that's happening in DC, the Epstein stuff, what Trump has been speaking about. It's all interesting. It's all relevant. It's all important.
Hmm.
Election integrity, not diminishing any of that. I have been focusing a lot of time and energy on alternate means of communication because that God just keeps highlighting that issue for me with a laser pointer. So that's what I've been spending a lot of time doing. I'm
Hmm.
learning other ways to communicate internationally across the
Yeah.
country, across the county, across the city, and through in the neighborhood. Uh,
And we did just for my listeners, I want to remind everybody the last episode that I did here with Dave was on the book. It was about the book on emergency preparedness. We spent about 90 minutes going into detail about what you can expect to find in this book. And this is a good time to remind people that everybody has a lane. And as you're asking what's going to happen, what can I do? Who's going to fix this? The answer to the question is sitting right in front of you, which is you. And when you're listening to God and you are in a place of receiving what it is that He has to show you, you are going to find out that He's going to tell you by dreams, by circumstances, by His word. This is your lane, and this is where I want you focusing. For example, some people are going to be learning how to do healing, emotional healing for people who are coming out of trafficking situations. Dave has an entire book on that that we featured on a prior episode. Whatever your situation is, that is that is where God wants you. And so Dave has really taken this very seriously, and he's put in thousands of hours of research and practical application, and that's why this book is here. That's why it's featured, and you have a place in that. So if you get the book, whether digital or we really encourage the hard copy in case you don't have digital. You get the book, you go through it. There may be something specific that really resonates with you that you're called to do for your community, whether it's food preparation, communications. There's all kinds of things in this book. And so I just wanted to make this a teachable moment for everybody here. So if you're thinking that you're going to sit back and go, yeah, this is Dave's thing. Dave is really focused on this. I just need to go shopping. Stop and focus because God has a role for you. Really important to understand that, guys. Everybody has a part to play.
True. And I would say everyone has a part to play in multiple things that God is doing. Like preparedness and communication is not the only thing that I'm involved in.
Yes.
On social media, I'm kind of a big mouth. And I like to put out information about other things that are relevant. What is Trump highlighting in his messages as he's campaigning? What's happening to the J6 defendants? What's happening with election integrity? I have my hand in all of those things, and I put out what I think is relevant, helpful information on all of that. And we can then take that information and take action on it. If you're in our circle of friends, you know that we follow General Flynn, and Flynn is one of the leaders in our movement, and he continually is emphasizing the fact, and so does Trump, that we are going to lose our country if we do not win this next election. And we have to get involved at the local level, whether it's becoming a precinct committeeman, whether it's becoming a delegate to the state convention where you get to vote for who is going to be the nominee in your state, whether it's running for the school board, running for mayor of your city. A lot of J6ers are running for Congress. I'm very encouraged. I think that our country is going to go through a rebirth and a reformation. Mm-hmm. And it's going to happen because average people like us are getting involved at the grassroots level. There's a lot of people who are determined to take our country back, take back control from the deep state. We've kind of abdicated our responsibility decades ago, and we need to take back control of our country. We can't just elect some people, send them to Washington, D.C. or to our state capital, and just hope that they're going to take care of everything and all will be well. It doesn't work that way. When we send those people to Washington, D.C., we're sending them into the pit. There are lobbyists, there are massive international companies, defense contractors, and all of this money and corruption waiting to prey on the representatives that we send to Washington, D.C. And 95% of the people that we send to Washington become corrupted within a few years. And they're not, from that point on, are not serving our best interest. So we can't.
They're actually going against our interests.
Live anymore, just ignorantly, not paying attention to what's happening politically. We have to keep our finger on the pulse. What's happening politically? What's happening to our representatives at the national level, at the state level, at the city level? We have to hold these people accountable. We have to make our voices heard. We have to go to the meetings. We have to get on phone calls. My rep, Andy Biggs, does phone calls a couple times a month, where he will talk to the constituents on a phone call and get input from his constituents about what issues they're concerned about. We need to we need to take this seriously. If we don't, we are going to lose our country. It's going to be turned over to Marxists, and it'll become
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
a socialist hellhole, just like China. That's what they want. That's what the globalists want. We cannot let that happen.
Hmm. Yeah, and one thing that I've observed in talking to people and just noticing people's reactions to a lot of the corruption that's happening is people seem to be under the impression that the people in power grant us our rights. And I want to dispel that myth right now. The entire premise of the Declaration of Independence, of the Bill of Rights, is that those rights are granted by God. And the people who are in office are given the job of protecting that. That's it. That's their job. They don't decide whether you can carry a gun or whether you can speak freely or whether you can protest peacefully. That's not their job. Their job is the opposite. Their job is to protect the God-given right that you have from birth, from the conception. And this is something that I wish more people understood when they say things like, oh, they're just not letting us do this. No, that's not how it works. They literally work for you. And if they're not doing their job that you elected them to do, get them out. That's it. There's no alternative.
Correct. They are our servants. We do not serve the
Yeah.
government. The government is not, the purpose of the federal government is not to decide what liberties, what rights we have, and to pass laws to restrict our freedoms and liberties. The government is our servant. Leaders in government serve at our will. We give them permission to serve us. They are our servants. They work for us. They take orders from us. We don't take orders from them. We're not beholden to them. They're beholden to us. We have the right to remove them for cause or without cause if we want at the ballot box.
Yeah.
Sometimes they get recalled. Katie, there's a push right now to recall Katie Hobbs. I don't know if we're going to get enough traction on that to get rid of her before the next election. We might.
Yeah.
But uh, there is a perception out there in the world that we are the servants of the government. We are the servants of this bureaucracy, this technocracy, and we need to destroy that mindset. And like you said, we need to realize that we are their masters. They serve us, they answer to us. And when we start holding them accountable, they will start acting as if they're accountable to us. And that hasn't been happening for the last 3 or 4 decades, but we need to change our way of thinking, repent, as Jesus would say.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's interesting because there are people out there who are getting closer at spreading that message. Of course, one of them has always been President Trump, but we're seeing other people. Vivek Ramaswamy is an interesting figure on this political landscape right now. I don't think he's going to be president. I think that he's going to have a role to play. He's an incredibly articulate spokesperson who is not woke. And this is what we need. I don't know that I agree with all of his policies, his past, things like that. But God does use people at certain times to get certain messages across. And I think that he is really effectively being used right now to do that. One of the things that I respect about him is his ability to handle the press. And I think that he can give many people a lesson in doing that. Again, not saying I want him for president or even for office, but God puts people in the spotlight to teach other people. A lot of people are more brave now in all fronts because of Trump, because of his willingness to stand up to the hecklers, to stand up to the fake news. Kari Lake is another example. And now you have Vivek Ramaswamy, who is doing that masterfully in some ways. And so this is something that as I talk about him, I see people saying no to him, and I get that. But don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Be open to what God is doing through certain people. For example, you would have had no idea of the corruption of the Republicans if they hadn't been allowed to steal 2020. We would have gone along thinking, oh, great, we won, everything's fine. We're just going to vote again in 4 years. There's so much revelation that's come out because of what's been happening.
Yep.
It's not the way we want it.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, and especially with Vivek. There are things that I have some disagreements with Vivek on. He's still kind of an election fraud denier. He's not really coming out strongly highlighting the issue of election fraud. He's staying away from that subject. He's just not comfortable with it.
Yeah.
But everything else that he talks about from a policy perspective, he is right on the money. And you're right. He's articulate. He's smart. He handles the press like very few people that I know. I mean, Kari Lake is in that same class where she can go toe to toe with anybody in the media and put them back on their heels and correct their false narratives. And it's interesting too, because Trump is a boomer and he resonates with people of my generation. I'm a boomer. Kari Lake is Gen X, and I think she resonates with that generation, the Gen Xers.
Mm-hmm.
Vivek is a millennial, and Vivek has a lot of draw and a lot of appeal to millennials. And I think it's important for America First, for our movement, to have spokesmen and spokeswomen that can speak to each generation as a peer. Hey, I'm one of you.
Yeah.
I culturally, I understand you, where you're at, what things you care about. It's very interesting that God is raising up people from different generations who all have a similar message, a similar ability to push back against the fake news media and advance the agenda of liberty. I think it's just great.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And yesterday, the Trump campaign put out a video, I think one of their most brilliant yet. It was the song by Aerosmith, "Dream On." Did you see it?
I did. I have not seen it. I've
oh
seen
gosh,
the videos out there on social media. I haven't actually clicked on them and watched the videos because
okay.
I am just up to my eyebrows in radio stuff right now.
Okay, this one he posted it yesterday, and it says the best is yet to come. It's on his Truth Social. A lot of people have shared it on X. I'm not going to play it right now because I'll get a copyright strike.
Right.
So but it's important because it's masterfully done. In the part where they're saying dream on, right? It highlights Klaus Schwab, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, and then, but the thing is, he doesn't take a dig at Vivek or RFK Jr., which is interesting.
Right.
And so there's a lot of messaging in that video that I think people should pay attention to.
I'll watch it.
And yeah, and so what I want to say to people is don't major on the minors. If Trump is not kneecapping Vivek, there's a reason for that.
Yep.
Okay. The same thing. If he's not kneecapping RFK Jr., don't allow yourself to get pulled into these rabbit trails of focusing on one individual or one situation or one narrative at the expense of being effective in the area that God's calling you to. That's an important message.
Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. There are a lot of people who have slight differences of opinion with us, with Trump, with Flynn, with Kash Patel. But the coalition, the MAGA movement, is made up of people who have a diversity of opinions. One of the things that I think is worth highlighting here for just a second is the fact that if you listen to most liberals, progressives, Democrats, they tend to be in lockstep agreement on a lot of things. Not always, not exclusively, but generally speaking, they have a consensus on most issues,
Mm-hmm.
and they just tend to kind of spout the party line. One of the things that's interesting about the America First movement is that we don't tend to spout the party line very well, and we're often accused of being sycophants, of believing everything Trump says, never being willing to criticize Trump. Actually, Kyle Seraphin was out there this week calling us sycophants because we refuse to call Trump out on his statements about the FBI in the building, and that Trump will not
Yeah.
say publicly that he wants the FBI disbanded. And Kyle and Steve Friend and all the other FBI whistleblowers, they are they have a very good perspective on what needs to be done with the FBI. They understand the corruption. They understand the
Yeah.
what is wrong with the FBI because they've been inside the beast. So they're being very vocal about the issue. That their issue is they want the FBI dissolved, disbanded, done away with. And I do too.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are a lot of reasons why we should not allow the FBI to continue. There is no provision in the Constitution for a federal law enforcement agency. You could argue, and I would argue, that the FBI primarily exists to cover up the crimes of the most powerful, wealthy people in the world. That's what whenever there's a crime that involves
Mm-hmm.
powerful and wealthy people, FBI comes in, takes over the scene, takes possession of all the evidence, and then buries that evidence so it'll never see the light of day and those people will never be prosecuted. That is not a legitimate law enforcement agency. That is an agency
Yeah.
that exists to cover up the crimes of powerful and wealthy people. It cannot stand, and I think we need to get rid of the FBI. However, Trump is a candidate who's running for office. He has said repeatedly he is going to destroy the deep state. He is going to over and over again at the rallies. He's like, I am taking on the deep state. We're going to destroy the deep state. We're going to gut these intelligence agencies, and we're going to remove their ability to harass and persecute conservatives and Christians, right?
Yeah.
So that's the messaging. It's very clear that he is taking on these people. He stops short of saying, well, we need to disband the FBI. We need to disband the CIA. We need to get rid of all these bureaucratic intelligence agencies. It would serve him no purpose to say openly that he's going to get rid of these agencies, because what that would probably lead to is the same thing that happened to Kennedy when he said he was going to take the CIA and shatter them into 1,000 pieces and scatter them to
Yep.
the wind. What happened? The
Yeah.
CIA assassinated him. If you don't
Yeah.
want Trump getting assassinated, maybe it's a good idea for Trump not to come out and say he's going to get rid of these agencies. Just a little bit of thinking there. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
one more point, and then I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah.
So, while what conservatives can and should do is think for yourself. You do not have to agree with everything Trump says. You don't have to defend everything Trump says. Most conservatives did not get the vax. Even though Trump was the president, even though Trump was saying, hey, it's a good idea if you want to get vaccinated, go ahead and get vaccinated. Didn't mandate it. Most conservatives did not get the vax. Most conservatives did not do a lot of things that Trump kind of advocated. That's because we think for ourselves, generally speaking.
Yeah.
A lot of good people who are MAGA people will sometimes disagree with Trump, and that's okay. You don't have to fall in line and back everything Trump says 100%. You can push back. You can have a different opinion. That's what did Q tell us repeatedly? Do your own research. Think for yourself.
Yeah.
Come to your own conclusions. Do not let someone else drive you or push you to their agenda. So I'll land it there. Your turn.
No, I like that. And I was just going to say that I think people uh I think one good rule of thumb is be a critical thinker, look at all of the pieces, apply the 48 to 72-hour rule whenever anything happens, and be careful about taking everything that Trump says or doesn't say at face value. He is a master at information warfare. And he also knows that all the eyes of all the world are on him. And a lot of the things that he says are not for your consumption, they
Correct.
are for his enemies. And,
Correct.
as Dave pointed out, it would not behoove him in any sense to say, yes, I'm going to dismantle the FBI. I think the point that he made in his post was a good one, which was it's your mess, you clean it up, you know, and don't reward them with a brand new uh, suburban complex outside of DC. Make them stay there and help clean up the mess that they created. And so, try to look at things from different angles when Trump says things, and then take a step back and say, is this meant for me? Is this meant for his enemies? Is this meant for the deep state? Maybe it just doesn't apply to me. Maybe Trump is trying to teach me how to be a critical thinker here.
Yeah.
And so I think that if you take a learning stance, a questioning stance, it might help you to get through this next several months with a lot less anxiety. And for goodness sake, don't go running out and looking for what Connie says about everything that Trump does or says, because they're going to have you in a tailspin on a daily basis with endless barrage of panic porn about him, and Trump should do this and Trump should say this. And just keep in mind that he outed a lot of those people when he called Ron DeSantis, I can't even say his name now, when he said Ron DeSanctimonious over a year ago. And I told you guys that he was doing that to expose people who were fair weather conservatives who really weren't behind the MAGA movement. And you saw these people come out of the woodwork. They showed their asses, they showed their true colors, and they continue to do that. And so please use discernment, pray for discernment about what it is that's actually going on, and who is, what are you being sold? What are you being told? And who benefits from it? Those are some important questions to ask whenever anything happens.
Yep. Especially be careful listening to anyone who claims to have insider information,
Oh, yeah.
insider intelligence. I have someone who's in the Trump administration who tells me things, and I have secret squirrel information. Anyone who is telling you that they have secret squirrel insider information, you should everything they say is suspect, unless it's someone like Kash Patel, who we know has regular meetings with Trump. If Kash Patel
Yeah.
says, well, the boss and I were talking the other day, and he said blah
Hmm.
blah blah, I'm going to listen to what Kash Patel says.
Yeah.
I'm
Same with
going to
General
listen to
Flynn.
what Ezra Cohen says. I'm going to listen to Chris
Yeah.
Miller. People that I know that are in Trump's orbit, I listen to those people. But the faking, LARPing intelligence insiders on social media who claim to have insider information, they're going to steer you in the wrong direction. You would be very wise to just tune those people out, block them on social media, and listen to reliable sources of information.
I think that's wise. And I will add to that, beware of people who come out of nowhere and have a meteoric rise in
Oh,
fame and
yeah.
exposure. I'm not going to name specific names right now, but we've seen this happen. Dave and I have been in this movement for quite some time. I know Christy is listening over on YouTube. She's in the same boat. We see people who just come out of nowhere,
Yep.
and they have explosive revelations, explosive theories, explosive insider knowledge, and they all of a sudden just explode on all social media. They've got an incredibly lucrative grift running, and people flock to them. And
Yep.
I get messages, Dave gets messages, hey, you've got to interview this person, you got to have them on your show. And typically I'll stand back and wait and see what I see. I'll listen to them. I'll just take a gander. But it's become clear to us, and that's why we're telling you, be really aware, be really wary. If the people have not been ride or die in this movement from day
Yep.
one, if they haven't had a channel banned, there's your sign. If they if they
And
haven't
yeah,
been banned from
and
at least one social media platform,
anyone who
go
is
ahead.
anyone who has a meteoric rise in popularity, comes out of nowhere, uh, is a CIA operative until proven otherwise. Because 90% of these people are plants. The intelligence community keeps on sending these people into our community, promoting them, connecting them with their various resources, and time after time after time after time, they gather an audience, they tell people what they want to hear, they give them some juicy information, and then
Yeah,
inevitably, they at some point they're going to turn against Flynn, against Trump, against MAGA, whatever. They This is the playbook that is being used by the intelligence community, and they do it over and over and over again. So I'd just
yeah,
be very,
yeah.
very cautious about anyone who suddenly pops up on the scene as the latest, greatest Johnny come lately, who has all the cool information. Guarantee you, almost every time that person is a plant, come into the movement to sabotage us.
Yeah, and I think the people that really do have inside information, they're not going to tell you. Even if they know certain things that are operationally true. Uh, for example, when I talked to General Flynn, he was on the show the other day. You know, I'm asking him some questions. He's been asked outright about Q. Um, just think logically, people. If somebody who is deep on the inside, who's maybe one of the top 10 people who really knows what's going on, why would they ever tell you, yes, this is true? This is the operation. You guys figured it out. I'm going to tell you, you got me. You got me. Yeah, it's true. Right? That's just suicide. That would be throwing our country to the wolves to do that. And I'm not saying that I have an insider understanding of what Flynn really knows, but I'm just telling you, think logically. No person in a position of command is ever going to tell you the operational secrets that would compromise operational security. It's just not going to happen. Their closest family members don't know those things.
Yep.
Now that being said, I want to transition to Flynn for a minute because he was on the show, and I had an opportunity to ask him what he thinks about the 2024 election, if we will have an election, and if the military would step in. It was interesting. He said that he doesn't think that he said there's a high likelihood that the deep state, that the globalist will somehow find a way to interfere and put a halt to our elections, which is kind of shocking to think about. But then he also said our military is not going to run our elections. That's not going to happen. So, I, yeah, I don't know. You have had other dreams and other inklings about what may be happening, and this is again, this is where even if the military were going to run the elections, would General Flynn say it? Right? Because our military has run elections in other countries. He told me that on the show. Iraq and Afghanistan, in wartime, with bullets flying,
Yes.
they ran elections.
Our military is very good at removing people from power and setting up elections. It's not like we've never done it before. We have a history of doing it. We just haven't done it here yet.
Yeah,
So yeah, again, it comes back to this issue of people like Flynn and Kash Patel. You do not rise to the level of authority within the intelligence community that these guys have arisen to unless you have an ability to keep secrets.
yeah,
Right. So Flynn was head of the Defense Intelligence Agency. Kash Patel worked at DOJ, was in the National Security Division, was Chris Miller, the Secretary of Defense, he was the chief of staff for the Pentagon. You do not rise to that kind of position unless you can keep secrets. And they have a
yeah,
lot of secrets. And there's a lot of
yeah,
things they're never going to tell us about. They have to be good at denying something, denying a lot of things, putting out disinformation, putting out distracting information, shiny objects to get people to look at certain things. Um, Flynn is a master of psychological operations. I think Kash Patel is too. They both know how
Yeah.
to run
Yeah.
a psyop. And not
Yeah.
all
And
psyops
yeah.
are bad. The military uses psychological operations. They're really influence operations. It's an operation with an objective that is designed to influence people's thinking in a certain way. In that sense,
Yeah.
Q is a psychological operation.
Yeah.
The goal of the Q operation is to influence people's thinking, to get them to stop relying on the mainstream media and start thinking for themselves
Hmm.
and doing their own research.
Yeah.
It's a research operation. And in a real sense, it's a psychological operation. Not all psyops are bad.
Yeah.
So, with Flynn and his discussion of the military and the election, on the one hand, uh, people like Flynn are willing to say on the record, I'm concerned that there may not be an election in 2024, which is what a lot of us feel. Denise feels there
Yeah.
may not be an election. I'm about 50-50 that they'll try to do something to um, delay or cancel the election. And so if you just watch what's happening on social media, look at how confidence in the election is waning across America. Uh, Look at the battle that's going on in dozens of states to remove both Biden and Trump from the ballots. This is
It's crazy.
unprecedented. It's never happened in history. There is so much fighting going on, so much, there's more evidence coming out in Georgia, here in Arizona, and other places where there's more and more evidence of election fraud coming out. We're going to see, I think we're
Hmm.
going to see the ballots and the ballot envelope signatures in Georgia. Uh, there's proven election fraud in Wisconsin, and they're working currently to try to reform that system. But the swamp is fighting hard to maintain its grip
Yeah.
on power. There has never been an election like the one that we're going to see. There's so much contention, there's so much mistrust. How does America pull off an election this year that the electorate can have confidence that the election was run correctly? It's going to be very difficult to do. And I think all of the concern and the mistrust and the evidence of election fraud that's coming out is leading toward down a path where some entity is going to have to run the election, or American people are not going to accept the results of it. That's my concern.
Yeah.
People are not willing to accept the results of the 2022 election, of the 2020 election. Democrats and liberals were screaming about the results of the 2016 election. There's mistrust on both sides. I don't know how we have an election in America where people can have confidence that the election was run fairly. That's my big concern. That's Flynn's concern too. I guarantee
Yeah.
he is wondering. He said it. He was on a space last night. He was talking with Laura Logan and some of the Anons on a space on Twitter, and he came out and said, he's like, look, I think that the 2024 election is going to be run fairly? Absolutely not. I know it's not going to be run fairly. I know
Yeah.
that there's going to be
Yeah.
cheating. We have to figure out a way to overcome that, because nothing has been changed with the way that the elections are run. We still have Raffensperger in Georgia. We have Katie Hobbs and Stephen Richer here in Arizona. They're going to continue cheating.
Yeah.
And so we all know that the mechanism to cheat is still there. It hasn't been addressed. It's been mitigated in some places, like Wisconsin. Supreme Court ruled that they have to get rid of the drop boxes. Did they overturn the results of the election in 2020, which had drop boxes? No, but now going forward, they're not going to have them. So I'm not saying that I think there's going to be a military-run election this year. I think it's a
Hmm.
possibility. If things go sideways, if we end up under martial law, if we end up in a war with China or Russia, which I think is becoming more and more likely as time moves on, we end up at war, in a shooting war with Russia or China or Iran, um, I think that the powers that should not be are likely to declare martial law. You declare martial law, I think it's likely that the military will be forced to step in and have some run some kind of election. I just think that things
Hmm.
are very quickly spinning out of control. When you look, stand back, look at the 40,000 foot view. Um, it's to me, it looks like things are just moving toward a very tumultuous, contentious election that is not going to be a normal standard election in 2024.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. And it's it's very interesting because last night in Trump's rally, he was talking about watermarks on ballots,
Yeah,
and he was making reference to the coming election. And a lot of people believe that the ballots from the last election were watermarked. It's just so again, Trump doesn't telegraph. He's never going to telegraph everything he's doing, but he does drop little hints.
yeah.
And so,
The
and there are
watermark
people,
ballots thing from the last election
yeah,
was that had a lot of traction and gave people a lot of hope. People like
yeah,
Brian Cates were pushing that agenda. I never really bought into it. It just didn't
yeah.
seem to me like there was anyone who would want to do that in a state where there was cheating going on. And then people were saying, well, secretly they did it on the secret. No one really knew it, except that, if you look at how elections are run.
Hmm.
Elections are run at the local level. Local election boards have to decide who is going to, they have to contract with people to provide their paper for their ballots. And to get all those various, hundreds of or potentially thousands of contractors to all use watermarked paper, it just logistically just didn't make any sense to me. I am not going to suggest to anyone that there are going to be secretly watermarked ballots in this 2024 election. I don't think that's going to happen unless if we end up under martial law and or if we end up with the military running an election, I could see the military coming in, running an election and using watermark ballots. I don't know, but possibility. They would have standardization over the ballots across the country. I don't think it's going to happen in 2024. I think when Trump is talking about that, he's been talking about moving forward. We need to have
Hmm.
1 day elections, paper ballots, counted
Yeah.
at the precinct level, bring your state issued ID, and maybe we'll have watermark ballots. The issue is elections, constitutionally, elections are supposed to be run at the local level, administered at the local level. On the one hand, if you're a freedom loving patriot, you don't want the federal government running the elections. It's not supposed to be that way. It's supposed to
Hmm.
be run at the local level.
Yeah.
I don't know how
Yeah.
Trump would be able to impose that watermark ballot, 1 day election, paper ballot, counted at the precinct level. How do you impose that
Hmm.
on counties and cities and states? I don't know how that works. Mark
That's a good
Finchem,
question. Yeah.
Mark Finchem, who ran for Secretary of State here in Arizona, his plan was to use watermarked paper for the ballots. Unfortunately, you know, he did not ascend to the Secretary of State's office yet. So
Yeah.
that plan has not been implemented. But I think there are a lot
Right.
of people who would adopt watermark ballots, especially with all of the mistrust among the voters that is going on regarding the election. As time goes on, as we move forward,
Hmm.
as there's more and more evidence of fraud coming out, I think we're going to be seeing precincts and possibly states moving away from using electronic voting machines and going back to hand counted paper ballots. I think there's a possibility some states will adopt watermark ballots as a security measure to restore confidence in the election, because as people become more and more concerned about election security, secretaries of state are going to have to address this issue at some point. I think it's better addressed at the
Yeah.
state level than at the federal level, but that's just my thoughts.
Well, I agree, and I think that there also has to be a huge change in the absentee, the mail-in voting systems. Do away with that, and then also the month-long voting. Same day voting. Get the results in. Other countries do it. That's just kind of a no-brainer. I mean, the idea that it takes people 6 weeks to
I,
get their asses off the couch to go vote. They can stand in line for a TV at Walmart at 4 in the morning. They can go stand in line to vote. I'm sorry. I mean,
yeah,
wheelchair, no wheelchair, whatever it is. I mean, if you can stand in line for a ride at Disney, you can go vote.
yeah, I
Just
cannot
sorry.
stand the thought
Yeah.
of going through again what we went through in 2020, where we are waiting every day for 2 or 3 or 4 more counties to drop
Yeah.
their precincts and their votes in Arizona. Hey, okay, we got results from Coconino County. We've got this many for Trump and we got this many for Biden. Check with us tomorrow. We'll have another update. And that went on
Yeah,
for
well,
10 freaking days.
yeah, like now
That
we
crap has
know
got
how
to end.
many.
And with Katie Hobbs as the
Right.
governor, Stephen Richer, and all these corruptocrats, I am not really hopeful about our elections here in Arizona this year.
Well, and it's pretty obvious. It's not about the votes, it's about the ballots.
Right.
Because if they know, okay, so and so got this many votes, so and so got this many, we need to come up with this many ballots. And
Yep.
that's where in a number of states like Georgia, they are finding evidence and producing evidence that people have done this, like the mail-in ballots that don't have a crease in them. And nobody's mailing in a ballot in an 8 by 10 envelope. That's not the way it works. It's a folded ballot. And so it's not, they're not, they don't care about voters. They care about ballots. If they can manufacture ballots, then they can figure out a way to cheat.
And
And this is where I think the watermarks
they
come
were
in
so
too.
clever to take the printing of the ballots, the mailing of the ballots, the scanning of the ballots, and the tabulation, and give it all to a third party private
Yeah,
company that's not subject to FOIA and not subject to public records requests.
of
So
course. Yeah.
there's no transparency in any of that.
And they figured
And
that out on many fronts.
in fact, Valenzuela, one of the election directors, admitted that Runback allows the insertion of ballots into the stream of ballots after the ballots go to Runback. He admitted that they had people dumping ballots into the stream that were not collected through the standard
Yeah.
way of collecting mail-in ballots.
Yeah. It's not the votes,
It's
it's the
just
ballots.
corrupt as hell. So
Yeah, it really is. So we've got about 7.5 minutes to wrap this up. So let's end on a positive note if we can. I hope that we've given people a lot, not just to think about, but to do. Because, like I said, everybody has something that is in your power and your ability to do. And so don't take this lightly. That we're not here to entertain you. We're here to activate and motivate you
yep.
to take action and to own your country. It's your country.
Denise has contacted our precinct committee chair, and we are going to be trying to get into the system where we can become precinct committee members here locally.
Oh, good.
Our
Yeah.
committee chair, he lives across the street from us actually, and we're not just talking. Denise is pretty serious. She wants to get involved. She wants to. It's not just talking the talk; it's walking the walk. We have got to get involved.
Right.
We have
Yeah.
to, get people registered. One of the big things about precinct committeemen and women, and in other jurisdictions, they're called delegates, whatever it is called in your area. Consider getting involved with you at the precinct level and filling a spot that's open. go out and what they do is they give you a roll of people in your area. And you can just go knock on doors and register voters. Whether they're Democrat, Independent, Republican, doesn't matter. We need to go out and just register voters. If we can increase the registration of real voters, we can maybe offset the corrupted voter rolls of all the dead voters and all the
Hmm.
phantom voters that are on the rolls, and get some real people in there voting to
Yeah.
offset the
Yeah.
corruption.
Yeah. Excellent. Dave has a website, you guys, prayingmedic.com. He has a couple of websites. Inkitypress.com, that's where you get his books. The ministry site is prayingmedic.org. You really have a big, big Telegram community, and that's where a lot of people go to find out all kinds of topics that you're focused on. I'm gonna show this up on the screen here because I know people want to hear more. I know they do. They're always upset when we're done. Um, Let me find it. We don't have as long of a time today. So anything else, Dave? I mean, let me put your book up here one more time.
I don't have a whole lot other than to encourage people to seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all of these
Yeah.
things will be added unto you. This is a really good time. I mean, every time, every day, every week is a good time to get more closely connected to God. But in
Yeah.
this coming year, 2024, when I think it's just going to be a crazy year of unexpected things that are going to come our way,
Yeah.
if you don't want to lose hope, if you do not want to be left feel in despair and discouragement and hopelessness, get close to God and ask him to show you what is coming and how you can get involved in changing things for the better. I'm very optimistic about the future of our country. As Steve Bannon said, if you think these people are going to give you back your country without a fight, you are sadly mistaken. It is going to be a fight. It is a fight we are going to win.
That's good.
We are going to win this
Yeah.
battle because there are way more patriots who are motivated to save this country, and
Yeah.
there are people
Yeah.
standing against us who want to destroy it. We have numerical superiority, and if we are willing to get out there, get involved, and follow God's plan, we're going to save this country and we're going to turn things around.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. And for people who may be wondering, how can I get close to God? Uh, Dave actually has a book about that, about hearing God.
There's a book for
And
that. Hearing
there's a
God's
book for
voice made
that.
simple.
Hearing God's voice made simple, because there's a lot of charlatans out there that are even spiritually want to lead people into lies. And so the truth is important, so that you understand how to know that it's God speaking to you and not some other entity. So I do encourage you to go and find that book, because you don't want to be led astray when you're seeking God. So that's called Hearing God's Voice Made Simple. And it's you can go to his Telegram, go to his website. All the books are linked there. But he's also on Amazon under Praying Medic. Here's the Telegram channel. I promised everybody I'd show it. So just to make sure that you're on the right one, um, it's
Praying
right there. It's
underscore
got
medic.
100. Yeah, right there.
That one.
And Dave never messages people privately on apps. I don't either.
I'm not going to ask
If you try,
you to buy Bitcoin or any kind of fake and gay
yeah,
cryptocurrency.
yeah,
Block
and
and
same
report
here.
those people.
And the only way to contact either of us is through our websites. Mine is marygracemedia.com. He's prayingmedic.com. Private messaging on any other app, I don't do it. Dave doesn't do it. So just keep that in mind. I think that's it for today. We will be back soon with Conspiracy of Truth here. Dave Hayes, Praying Medic, and Mary Grace. And I will be back next week with several shows for you as well. Everybody have a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon.